This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Welcome, everybody. Happy Monday here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Michael Remis filling in for Hustler, who's still defrosting. He's on his way back from Kansas City. He was at that, the fourth coldest game ever in NFL history. Chiefs winning against the Dolphins. I think, he said he was at they compared it to the West Final here a couple of years ago with Bombers Riders, that it was even colder than that. I can't imagine. We did see Patrick Mahomes' helmet crack from the cold. So he's on his way back. You get me here in the host chair, Connor Hrabchak, joining in shortly. I know they did such a great job on Friday, Hustler and Connor holding it down with Alex, as I took the day off for a little rest and recovery. Thank you, everyone, for the good wishes. I guess it was my birthday. I try not to advertise it, but Hustler did that for me, so I appreciate all the messages in chat. I checked in very briefly, and I know there's some super chats as well. I see Owen in here, who had a very generous one. Shout out to Owen and Tico and Paulie. I don't know if Paulie's around, but yeah, it was a solid weekend. Followed NFL football playoff super wild card weekend. Love calling it super wild card weekend. Since they added the extra game, not calling it regular wild card. You get 6 games, not 4. It's way better. And yes, Jets hockey there on Saturday. A lot of games, full slate of games Saturday with only 2 yesterday. And if you're a Leafs hater, I'm sure you enjoyed them losing yesterday to a Red Wings team that I think got to the arena like 30 minutes before the game, because we're hearing a lot about weather lately, as here finally after such a nice stretch there in December when it was like single digits. Now we're in -20, and weather in Buffalo, they postponed the game till this afternoon, and weather in Kansas City, and yes, travel delays. I know Katie and Rennie in Columbus for the little afternoon hockey today. I know I'm all over the place, but got a great show planned today. We'll talk Jets. They're back at practice after having yesterday off, and the streak is over. And we'll get set the middle of CFL offseason. So Scott Cullen is going to join me at half hour or so, 25 minutes. We'll go around the NHL. We're at the midway point. Who's got your awards picks? And Jeff Hamilton will touch on CFL offseason. It's getting hot. Jeff tweeting the Bombers could bring back Chris Streveler. Who wouldn't want to see that? And does that mean Drew Brown is on his way out? Possibly Ottawa. So Jeff's got all the inside info on the CFL, but mostly Jets back on the ice today. But first, big shout out to the sponsors: Canadian Club, Modern Man, Manitoba Battery, Winnipeg Jets, Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, Little Brown Jug, Boston Pizza, and of course, Coolbet. And all right, let's get it going here. I'll bring in Connor Hrabchak, and the host of Jets Weekly, came out today on podcast and YouTube. Connor, what's going on? Welcome back 2 days in a row for you. Great to have you here.
Two of my favorite shows is the Monday show is always packed of content. You get the whole weekend to talk about, and yes, super wild card weekend. There's a lot of drama. I'm sure we'll get into it, but yeah, thanks for having me back on. Glad to be back.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming in. Yeah, and check out Jets Weekly podcast and YouTube channel. It's funny. Last week's Jets Weekly, the week ended with the Jets in first place. They had this epic win streak going. And, today, Jets Weekly finishes with the Jets losing streak ending. And it doesn't seem like as many people, seem like interest a bit down than last week, but still have to feel pretty good about the Jets, right? They're not going to win. They're not going to go 82-0 or whatever it is, 41-0 left of the year.
Hey, they set a franchise record winning streak this week, but they went 0-1 in their last game. So interest is down, right? Like that's just NHL hockey. Like you could win 8 straight games, but you go 0-1. That's you still got to improve. And as Rick Bowness always says, unless you're winning the Stanley Cup, you got room to improve. So the Jets, 0-1 in their last one game. That game against Philly, we'll dive into it in a second here, but a hard-fought game, Saturday night crowd. It was a fun night inside Canada Life Center.
Yeah, I think we have to pour one out for the Jets win streak here. Although they did get to keep 2 other streaks. It was still the 12th straight game of 2 or fewer, 32 straight of 3 or fewer, but 8-game win streak. That's a franchise record. Goodbye to that. And how many games with a point was a 15-game point streak? Also a franchise record. And that was the first regulation loss in a month, December 12, 2023, against San Jose, of all teams. And I don't know what it is about the Jets, Connor, when they go up against these non-playoff teams like Montreal and San Jose, Chicago, now the Flyers. They can't seem to get it done. I mean, what was your assessment of the streak breaker on Saturday?
I said in episode 12 of Jets Weekly that I've never seen Jets fans that I've talked to, Jets Twitter, wherever you get your content, I've never seen everyone so content with a loss. Like, obviously, they have a franchise record winning streak going, and the team is in first place, so if you lose, it's okay. But missing Kyle Connor, missing Mark Scheifele, it just seemed like everyone was like, all right, that's fine. Just get the next one. Let's start a new streak, right? That's the mindset definitely within the room with the Jets, but Jets Twitter weirdly calm after the loss. And I thought the Jets played fine. That push in the third period was especially impressive when you take into account they're missing their top 2 scorers, arguably. Maybe you throw Nikolai Ehlers in that conversation, but Gabriel Velarde, we've got some clips coming up from him in a second, but he had, I'd say, like 4 or 5 glorious chances, wasn't able to score. And maybe if the puck bounces, the Jets have been getting some games where maybe the puck bounces their way and they escape with a win. Maybe this was a game where it bounced the other way. Carter Hellebuyck was still great, but yeah, I think Jets fans are okay with the loss, given how much winning the team has done since the start of November.
They're going to have to lose at some point. You could kind of feel it happening with that performance against Chicago. Was the schedule catching up to them? Our injuries catching up to them? Mark Scheifele was out with an injury after leaving Thursday's game. Adam Lowry moved up to the top line center. Ehlers, he's been banged up, missing practices, and we're going to get to today's practice. Axel's been banged up. Rasmus Kupari, they wanted to give him a bit of a conditioning stint, didn't get much of one due to all the injuries. And the Jets, they definitely had some pushback there in the third period. At one point they were outshot 28-17. They closed the gap and really outshot Philadelphia in the third period, who was in the second of a back-to-back. They did win overtime on Friday against Minnesota, who is just having a terrible, terrible go since dropping back-to-back games, and nobody here feels bad. I'm actually quite enjoying seeing them lose, to be honest. But they're still kind of bringing Winnipeg Jets hockey. Bonus said after didn't like the second period, but you're right. Velarde had chances. The one thing we got to keep harping on this: the power play and special teams. That was a bit of a game changer there. Power play 0 for 3 on Saturday, and they did allow a power play goal for the first time in a couple games there from the Flyers. But I guess it had to win. The one thing, what would you rather have, a win and the 3 or fewer goal allowed streak at 32 ends, and the 12th straight game of 2 or fewer that ends, or you have your first loss in 9 games? Which are you taking, the win streak or the goal streak?
So you're saying either a 6-4 win or a 2-0 loss?
Yeah. Which one? Would you rather them have won 6-4?
I think so. The franchise record winning streak would be pretty cool to keep going. And obviously that's what all the players and coaches would say. So I'll default to that. I'll take the the cliche way out. All we want is the 2 points.
Nice.
But
I like that.
But if they were gonna lose, like, why not only give up 2 goals? Why not lose 2-0, 1-0? Keep those streaks going. And I jokingly said to Dave Minuk of Illegal Curve, if they're down 3-1, are they pulling the goalie? Like, and there's like a minute and a half left. Like, do they care about this streak that much? Obviously, I think they would. Obviously, I think they would pull the goalie. But it's a fun thing to think about because they've gone, what is it, 32 straight now, allowing 3 or 4?
Yeah, 32. And I think the Y was it 14-15 Wild with 35. That's like the modern record. And I think it's even crazier doing it in this era of the NHL where, teams are scoring 3 pretty routinely. So, we're having a bit of fun here. And yeah, the team's always looking for the 2 points. And so I think they'll take that. But I think the streak has kind of just been a byproduct of the way they're playing. And it's just sort of happened. It's like the Undertaker streak. Like, next thing you know, he's got 15 straight WrestleMania wins or whatever. And then it becomes a big storyline. But we'll go to Rick Bowness. What did he think of the Jets game Saturday? We'll play a couple post-game reaction, and then we'll move on to today's, whatever happened at today's practice. So here's Rick Bowness from Saturday postgame.
Tonight we just didn't score. Simple as that. We had some really good looks early. Their goalie made some big saves early. We had some really good looks in the third. Puck just didn't go in the net for us tonight.
What happened in the second where they started to lean on things?
It was poor puck management. Most of their chances were coming off of the rush because we just managed the puck really poorly, and we did. We turned it over, and they were coming at us, and they were catching us on our heels. So it was more about puck management, bad puck management, than anything in the second period.
We haven't seen that in a long time.
No, we haven't. So
what's the message on that then?
We cleaned it up in the third period. And we started to go north, and we started to get it behind their D. Their gaps were really good tonight. And when you're playing a team like that, you get it behind them, you go to work, and we did that in the third. First period was even. They won the second period, but we took control of the game in the third. We just didn't score. Simple as that.
And there's Rick Bowness post game. They like the third period. Didn't use the term pushback, but they certainly did have some after down 2-0 to the Flyers. And full credit to the Flyers and John Torella. He has this team playing hard. I think they're performing much better than anyone would have expected. It's kind of ruining Danny Briere's plans for a rebuild. I mean, they have a +8 goal differential on the year, a 3-game win streak. What are they going to do as we head in to the trade deadline? I always like hearing from Gabe Vilardi. He's been a guest on this show. He's honest with his comments, honest about his game. And I thought he had a nice one. A couple chances in, very, very in tight on Urson, where you want to go. He's so good at getting to the scoring areas. Couldn't put it past him. Here's Gabriel Vilardi's thoughts on the game.
Yeah, I mean, couldn't pull another one out of the hat. Got to score. Can't win if you don't score.
Is there some pride in the pushback at the end? I mean, it looked like you were all over them, or were you more just sort of stunned by not being able to get that goal?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously feel good to playing like we were playing hard. Yeah, we had looks. Just like I said, I mean, you got to score. We got to find ways to score. We had a lot of really good looks. I had 2 breakaways in the first 10 minutes. You just got to find ways to score in this league.
One where you tip your hat a little bit to their goaltender, just chalk it up to maybe some tough puck luck tonight?
No, I don't tip hat to anybody. I think it's just we didn't score. You got to find ways. You got to get in front of the goal. You got to jab at pucks in front and keep battling and win your stick battles in front. And I mean, yeah, we had a lot of good looks, and it's a tough one.
What did you think of the chemistry with your not-so-new centerman, Adam Lauder?
Yeah, great to play with. He does everything well out there. He's a great playmaker, underrated playmaker, and but yeah, he's very smart, and he's very sound defensively, offensively. You know where he's going to be. He's just a solid all-around player, as you guys already know.
Gabriel Vilardi says he doesn't tip his hat to anyone, which I enjoyed. And then talking about playing with Adam Lowry as well. And Adam Lowry on pace for a career season in terms of points, getting elevated to top-line center. And a lot of talk now, we don't like to use excuses here, just solutions. That's Rick Bowness's motto. this season. But hey, it was 9. They're 9 game in 15 days. It's tough, and you can kind of see like guys are getting banged up. Mark Scheifele's out with an injury. Axel's missing practice. Ehlers, he was banged up, missing practices. They asked Gabe Villardi after the game if they were affected by this heavy schedule that's been over the last couple of weeks here.
I mean, this is the better part of it. I think it's gotten, I mean, obviously you say that we're at the end of it, but there was a period there, I think we had 5 and 7. That's when it's really grinding. They played last night. So, I mean, you can't really use any excuses. You got to come out to play. I think both teams played hard. It's just, like I keep saying, you got to find ways to score. You got to score. We had a lot of chances, a lot of good chances too, and we didn't score.
Point of pride, though, in what you guys have accomplished here to go 8-0 leading into tonight. Obviously, would like to keep it going, but you have to be happy with what you've been able to do here.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you win 8 games in a row. I think it's a sign of a good team when you lose 1 out of 9, and I mean, we're not happy here. I'm not happy. That was a game that we feel we could have and should have won, and I mean, yeah, I guess they got the better of us tonight. That's the way it goes.
So while Connor and I say we're happy, we're Jets fans there were, we weren't upset about the loss. Hey, 1 and 9, like that's a pretty good stretch there. Gabe Villardi feels, hey, they should have won and they got a score and they didn't score. So I enjoy Gabe Villardi's comments. I'm not sure about you, Connor.
Yeah, Gabe Villardi is always an interesting interview because you expect these players to use the same cliches, say the same thing in their post game, but he kind of just, we've played 9 games in 15 nights, but Philly played last night, so you can't really use that excuse. Like he's very blunt, very honest about it. The tipping your hat, he's like, no, I thought we could have done better. I wouldn't tip my hat to the goalie. I thought we could have scored and done more, which is interesting because, like I said before, he's the guy that had 4 or 5 grade A chances right in the slot. Mm-hmm. So if there was anyone that would tip their hat, it would be him. But yeah, he's very blunt, very honest with his comments. And as a media member, I can appreciate that. It makes for some good quotes and a different perspective, because some players would just come up there and say, yeah, we got goalie tonight. We've been playing a lot. It's a grind of a schedule. But Villardi's like, no, we could have done better. Yeah, it's a grind of a schedule, but they played last night. We can't make an excuse. And it's a fresh perspective.
Yeah, you love the honesty. So that's a wrap on Saturday's game. Next game tomorrow against the Islanders. First look at them. Looking forward to seeing what they bring in. Very stingy on defense, the Islanders. And Noah Dobson goes kind of underrated as one of the top defensemen in the NHL. But you mentioned tipping a hat. We're going to do a couple hat tips here. Rick Bowness, official over the weekend, sent out the press release yesterday, selected to the NHL All-Star Game as head coach. So it'll be Rick Bowness and Connor Hellebuck representing the Jets there. Big congratulations to him. Not much more to add. I mean, they're the top team in the league. They said he's representing the Central Division, but they're not doing divisions. It's a draft this year. Like, they don't know what to call these teams anymore. So he's going to be representing one of them, and that's pretty cool. So credit to him. And we thought he was going to get it last year, and they fell 1 game short. And this is the redemption year, and if the Jets keep it up, maybe they'll redeem the 2019 second half where they lost out on the Central Division banner, and they can get that this year. And a hat tip here to Dylan Samberg, named to PGA Tour Canada or PGA Tour Manitoba Open, August 22 to 25 at Southwoods. Who's been there? Scheifele's been in there. Kyle Connor, Morgan Barron. Last year now, Dylan Samberg getting in. We'll have to see about his golf game. I don't know if you have any thoughts on either of those two notes. Anything more to add?
The Rick Bowness one quickly. I don't have any thoughts on Dylan Samberg's golf game.
Do we know if he's is he good or?
Yeah, I guess we'll have to find out. But Rick Bowness, I mean, obviously one of the most well-respected coaches, people across the NHL. And given what he's been through this year, this is great for him. He deserves it. I still remember when he came back after his absence and the Jets lost like 2 of 3, and people were, get Arniel back. Yeah, that was funny. That was really funny when people did that for about 3 games. But now here we are. He's heading to the All-Star game as the top coach in the NHL, and he's one of he's one of the favorites for the Jack Adams, especially since, again, if the Jets finish first, say they win the President's Trophy, obviously the coach has a big part in that. So congratulations to Rick Bowness. He absolutely deserves it, and he's done an incredible job this year.
Yes, well said. And moving on, Jets practice today. They were off yesterday, and it was surprising to see. He hinted at this at the end of Saturday's post game, but Kyle Connor practiced in a regular jersey. He was on the top line there with Lowry and Villardi because Nikolai Ehlers took a maintenance day. David Gustafson was back. The other lines, Mitch Clinton, John Liu, Mike McIntyre, they're all there sending out the tweets. Perfetti, Nemesnikov, Iafallo, Niederreiter, Toninato, Appleton, Barron, Kupari, Axel, Janssen Fjallby, and Gustafson. Defense been the same. Morrissey, DeMello, Dylan Pionk, Sandberg, Schmidt, Stanley, Chisholm, Hellbuck, Brossois, and John Liu. Tweeted out the power play was Villardi, Iafallo, Lowry, and Kyle Connor at his spot on the right side with Josh Morrissey up top. In the second power play, Nemesnikov with Pionk, Niederreiter, Perfetti, and Schmidt at the blue line. So those are the power play notes. And Rick Bowness, we mentioned, was not at the practice today. He said he had another commitment, but after it was revealed that his wife, Judy Bowness, had shoulder surgery and is doing great. So that was positive to hear. And I don't know what you know about Kyle Connor, but he'll be reassessed on Tuesday. That's what they said. Yesterday was 5 weeks of the 6 to 8 week recovery. And I think having him back would be a huge, this is not a stretch, it would be a huge boost to the team. Hot take that just got shut out by the Flyers. I don't know what you want to do with the lines when he returns. Let's say Ehlers is back tomorrow. It's just maintenance. How are you rocking the top six here?
Well, I think definitely for a game, you'll see them do what they did with Villardi, which is play him on the fourth line and just play him maybe 8 to 10 minutes, get him back up to NHL speed on a few low sheltered shifts, which is probably the best. You don't want Kyle Connor playing 20 minutes fresh off an injury. I always, in my mind, thought that Saturday would be the game he would come back. He gets a practice in today, the Jets will play tomorrow, and then they'll get 2 more practices in before hitting the road, and then he'll join the team on that 3-game road trip. But hey, if he's ready to go tomorrow, play him on the fourth line, then give him a few days of practice, and then he's a full go for next Saturday. And to answer the lines question, I think you can't split up Ehlers and Villardi right now. I think they're playing too well, no matter who's in the middle, whether it's Lowry or Scheifele, whoever's healthy. But Ehlers and Villardi have shown chemistry together, so I'd lean towards putting Kyle Connor with Cole Perfetti, seeing if that combination could work out. Maybe a Perfetti, Nemesnikov, Connor second line. But I just don't want to touch Ehlers and Villardi. The chemistry they have right now, I'd leave them be. Let them keep putting up big points on the top line, especially Kyle Connor. You need goal scorers, but he'll be in the top 6. He'll still be getting his minutes, and Ehlers and Villardi, if they can keep it up, the Jets will be just fine.
Yeah, looking at the schedule, a bit of a lighter schedule this week here for the Jets. Tomorrow night against the Islanders, and then, as you said, 3 days off, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, before heading out on this Eastern road trip Saturday afternoon against Ottawa, who's had a lot of trouble keeping the puck out of their own net this year, and a really disappointing year for an Ottawa team that you thought was going to take a step forward. They've already gone with the coaching change. They're in Boston on Monday, and then back-to-back with Toronto before the All-Star break. So I think the All-Star break coming at a good time with Mark Scheifele banged up. We're not really sure if he's going to be out long-term. And, Nikolai Ehlers will have to wait and see for tomorrow. So that is the Jets update. And a couple other NHL notes around the NHL as we're going to have a more comprehensive discussion with Scott Cullen with McKeen's Hockey and Pinnacle. They did reveal the All-Star, when they did the coaches, they announced the voting. I don't know. I thought the vote, how much you want to
going to bring up the jerseys there. Sorry.
We're going to spend a lot of time on the jerseys at the end of the show. We're going to get to Scott, but it seemed like Vancouver and Toronto fans stuffed the ballot box with Nylander, Marner, Riley. It's there. They get in. Vancouver fans. I didn't know Vancouver fans. I mean, maybe I should have, but they really, when their team's good, they're enthusiastic. We certainly saw that in 2011. JT Miller in, Paterson in, Brock Besser, and Thatcher Demko will be joining Quinn Hughes at the game. Crazy. And more fan vote. Jeremy Swayman gets in. Georgiev for Colorado, who's got a great number of wins, but low save percentage. Sergei Bobrovsky and Leon Draisaitl. Amazing that Leon Draisaitl has to get voted in. Like, this whole, I don't know, the whole thing is weird. But one thing that's interesting for me is looking forward to the All-Star game this year, Connor. They did announce the competitors of this skills competition. In the past, the skills competition, it's been boring, and like everyone gets a turn and they do the events. But this is interesting. I don't know how you feel about this season. Bunch of guys going in, 10 competitors, or is it 12 or 10? They've announced Pasternak, McKinnon, Draisaitl, McDavid, Hughes, I think it's Jack, Kucherov, Matthews, Nylander, Pedersen, and Makar are going to be competing for $1 million, and you get to vote on the final 2 guys and competing for fastest skater, hardest shot, passing challenge, one-timer challenge, stick handling, accuracy shooting, one-on-one, and obstacle course. So going with a little hockey decathlon here for the skills competition on the Fridays. How are you feeling about that?
I like it. I mean, what was it last year? They would have all the divisions go, and like every event would be a different player from that division, and then you're competing against, like, the Central Division would be competing against the Pacific. I prefer this. You get to watch one player if you're a fan of this one team. You get to watch this one player, cheer for this one player the whole way through. You know, Matthews will be going in every single event in Toronto. I think that's really cool. We'll get to some other things that I don't really like about the All-Star game, and you brought up the voting. There's definitely some players that got snubbed out of that, but I do like that idea to have the same, 10 or 12 mix of players competing in the skills competition and have them going in every single event, instead of, Boone Jenner going in the hardest shot, and then someone else, Tom Wilson, going in the fastest skater, whatever the case may be. Just keep the same 12 players and have them compete. I like that idea.
Yeah, I think the way that the format is, we have to have someone from every team. You're going to have snubs, and it's crazy that there's guys who are in the top 10 in scoring and can't really make the team. It's dumb, but that's what they want to do. And if we did have a vote, I know you're saying it'd be great to have Josh Morrissey. I mean, he's clearly one of the top 5 defensemen in the league, top want to extend top 10. I mean, he's not in the game. The whole thing's silly, but whatever. It's for sponsors, for TV, for fans. Get every fan, get everyone to have a team in. And just around the NHL, it's nice to see Connor Bedard back on the ice today. He broke his jaw on an unfortunate play, went hard to the middle, then defenseman stepped up on him, but he's there rocking the bird cage, Connor. So nice to see Connor Bedard on the ice. And we are at the mid-season. I mean, is the Calder Trophy still his to lose?
I'd think so. It depends how long he's out for. But I think it's still his trophy. I mean, then another thing I'm concerned about is if he can skate now in a non-contact with a bubble like shield on. A lot of people were concerned about him missing the All-Star game. Why can't he just compete in like the accuracy competition and the hardest shot if he's already 2 weeks away skating with a cage on? Like, it's not like he's taking contact. There's no hardest hit competition where Connor Bedard's gonna have to step up to the plate and get crunched by Tom Wilson. I think this is good news for the league if he's able to just go to the All-Star game, maybe take part in some media, and have his face be there, and then just maybe take part in a few skills competitions with a cage on. I don't know if that's going to work, but that's what I'm concerned about. But yeah, I still think it's his trophy to lose for the Calder.
Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. And here we'll do Hustler and I like to do our daily standings task, where you just look at the standings and admire the Winnipeg Jets, first place in the league. Not quite happening right now. Hold on one sec. I'm just working working out with.
Another Canadian team, though, another Western Canadian team, I might add. You hear a lot about the Eastern Canadian teams when you're tuning into Sportsnet or SportsCenter, but two Western Canadian teams leading the NHL. Who would have thought? And yeah, Vancouver, 29 wins. That's really impressive. They've been great this year. Thatcher Demko had to be voted into the All-Star game, but he's up there with the Vezina for Hellebuck, and Quinn Hughes is probably going to win the Norris. Like he's well ahead for that. The only guy, Cale Makar, you see the Avs up there as well. But I think it's nice to see two Canadian teams running the league. That isn't Toronto and Montreal.
Yeah, not Toronto. And Toronto, their record in regulation hasn't been good. They're on a bit of a losing skid here, blowing leads, blowing one to Detroit yesterday, Colorado earlier. I know a lot of people in chat enjoying that. In Vancouver, you're talking about Rick Bowness as head coach, Jack Adams. You know, there are a lot of people saying Rick Tocchet could be the guy. Vancouver out of the playoffs last year. Their team was a total mess that they traded away Bo Horvat, and I don't think anyone saw. Maybe more surprising. Here we are. You know, we're in Jets land. We're saying, Rick Bowness should be coach of the year, but Vancouver, they got a better goal differential. They're in first place now here after 43 games. Really impressive what's happening. A year ago, it's like, there's no way Elias Paterson would resign there. That team is a tire fire. They're a dumpster. They're in the basement of the league. They're and who else? Brock Besser, wants out, or there are a lot of trade rumors surrounding a number of players, and here they are. So shout out to Vancouver. Nice to see them having success after surviving the Jim Benning years. Let's go here. We're done with the standings. We're trying to bring in Scott Cullen. I think he's having some technical issues, but I'll throw it to Hustler here and for a couple words, and then we'll see if we can bring in Scott. So here's Huss.
A big thanks to our friends at Canadian Club. We've sort of been joking that, it's not even joking. I know a lot of Jet fans have been toasting victories one after another. If you are doing that, you may as well make it with Canada's favorite Canadian whiskey. Canadian Club. There's a CC for every occasion, and the occasions right now are Winnipeg Jet wins, and that's making everybody around these parts happy. And of course, CC, also a proud sponsor, is the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. But if you pop into your local Manitoba liquor marts right now, check out all the Canadian Club favorites, the original 100% rye CC Classic 12-year-old, and there are still limited availabilities left of the special Canadian Club Invitation Series CC 15-year-old Sherry Cask, the signature classic 12-year-old whiskey finished with a secondary aging in Oloroso sherry casks. All the hallmarks of classic Canadian Club with the added richness and sweetness of sherry. Pop by your local Manitoba liquor marts and stop up on Canada's #1 Canadian whiskey, Canadian Club. And as always, please enjoy responsibly. Guys, we are into 2024 right now. The Jets are looking good. Very good. If you want to look great, get on down to Modern Man Barbershop and get a great new look for 2024. Modern Man has 8 locations in Winnipeg, including the newest locations on either Pembina Highway or Plessis Road. And guys, they've got you covered with a variety of grooming services, including great haircuts, beard shaping, shaves, color services, and more. You can make an appointment and book your look via modernmanbarber.com. And give them a follow on Instagram as well over at Modern Man Barbershops. And hey, it's getting chilly right now. I'm looking ahead. I'm not pleased with these daytime highs of minus 20 or worse, but we knew it was happening, and you better be ready with your car battery so you're not on the side of the road calling somebody for a pickup or a boost. And of course, Manitoba Battery's got the best prices in town, beating the pants off the big box stores. But there's also big news for Manitoba Battery, because next month in February, they're opening up a second location in the south end of Winnipeg. Donnie and the gang want to thank all of you for your support along the way. And now for South Winnipeg folk, you'll be able to get your batteries locally and conveniently from the new location at 452 Dover Court. We'll fill you in on sales and grand opening specials coming up as they get closer to open. But they did want to thank all the WST fans for their support and making Manitoba Battery one of the Winnipeg Sports Talk family. Get on over for all your battery needs at the best price and shopping local, manitobabattery.com, or give them a phone call at 204 783-8787.
Thank you very much. Hustler on his way back from Kansas City, still thawing from the Chiefs' Saturday night win over the Miami Dolphins on Super Wild Card Weekend. Well, I'm so pumped here to bring in our first guest, Scott Cullen, McKeen's Hockey and Pinnacle as well. Scott, how's it going? Thank you so much for coming in. It's great connecting with you again.
Yeah, it's been a while, Michael. Good to see you.
Nice to see you. Well, I'm sure you can imagine it's been quite a fun and, actually familiar feeling Jets season this year, although we're not expecting that second half drop off. But from outside the market, Scott, what have you seen from the Winnipeg Jets here this season?
You know what? It was interesting at the start of the year. I guess, even go back before that, when the Jets decided they were trading Pierre-Luc Dubois, there was some suspicion that, is this the time that, the Jets are really going to take a step back and rebuild? And they didn't, right? They made the Dubois trade. And truthfully, you could tell by what they got back in the Dubois trade that they were still intending to contend. Like, they got good quality NHL players, and it improved their depth. Now, you can say at the time that they probably didn't think that they were getting a player with the same top end, but you could look at getting Balharry and Iafallo especially, and saying the two of those guys certainly make up enough to give the Jets a quality group of forwards and still be competitive this season. Now, I don't say this trying to be like, oh, I was right about the Jets. I would say maybe I was a little bit less wrong about the Jets. And if there were people who thought the Jets were really going to struggle, I was kind of like, well, no, I think that they should be competitive. And you have Connor Hellebuyck, who's one of the best goalies and one of the best goalies. So, this should be a team that has, playoff aspirations and realistically so. But as the season has gone on, I think it's gotten certainly even better than I would have thought. That they're and the thing was at the start of the year, Hellebuyck didn't even get off to a great start. He was fine, but not kind of at his typical level. And now that has started to pick up. And strangely enough, the Jets have really gone on this run with Kyle Connor out. They don't have a ton of huge scorers. You got Connor and Mark Scheifele are the two guys who score a point per game. And with Connor out, they've kind of continued to have success. And I think some of that can be attributed to that this is a really balanced team that, if you lose a player like Connor, I mean, that's not ideal, obviously, but they have the pieces to make it work. And that's the way it kind of looks from the outside. And it's just, it sort of seems to be working at kind of at the peak level right now, that you would say, this is, a team with the best record in the National Hockey League. That's the best they could have imagined, I think, coming into the season.
Yeah, President's Trophy, gunning for that. We would have been happy just with the Central Division banner, but there they are, the highest points percentage in the league at the midway point of the season. And I agree. I mean, I thought, I was like, how are you going to trade Dubois and still try to compete? But they found a match with Rob Blake, and maybe it's not going for them as well as they would have hoped after their hot start. Well, I'll ask about, I was going to save it, but now that you just mentioned the trade, I mean, the Kings got off to this hot start. I know you just wrote about them at Pinnacle. What do you make of the Kings? Because they were very strong to start. Now Edmonton's surging there in the Pacific. And look at the Kings' last 10, 2-4-4. What's going on with the Kings, who were, I guess, who lost their most recent game?
Yeah, early in the year, the Kings, I thought, were a big surprise. Like I had kind of at the beginning of the year. Again, we're going back in time here. At Pinnacle, I wrote about the Kings as kind of a sleeperish pick coming into the season, because their odds were relatively long to win the Stanley Cup, and I wasn't sure about their goaltending, but otherwise you could kind of could see it was a pretty solid roster. And then Cam Talbot, their goaltender, started playing great, and 36 years old, maybe you could have some doubts about whether that would hold, but he was really terrific, and the Kings got off to this great start. Now Talbot's play has dropped off, not to a terrible degree. It's not as though he's been awful, and I really don't think he's the reason that they've started to fall off. It's that, like, they're just not scoring. They're I think when I wrote about them a few days ago at Pinnacle, they were ranked 31st in shooting percentage over the past month, and the fluctuations that you get in shooting percentage or save percentage can be the kind of thing that put you on these slumps, and that's kind of where the Kings are right now. Like I still look at that team and think, yes, they're a really quality group of skaters, and if they get decent goaltending, they should be fine. But I mean, there's some risk there that Talbot played so well early on. I don't know whether you want to expect that he can handle that as the full-time starter at this stage of his career. Well, I guess we'll kind of find out, because I don't think that the Kings are really in a position to get someone else to fill that role. So and if we're going to be specific about the trade, I think Dubois has probably been a disappointment for them. I think the Kings, when they brought him in, you figured that you're going to run Kopitar, Dubois, and Danault down the middle of the ice and basically be safe every shift that you roll out those three centers. And I think Dubois has not been nearly as productive as they had hoped. And it kind of got masked over while the team was winning, right? People weren't that concerned that he wasn't producing, but now that the team is starting to lose, I think it's starting to get a little bit more attention that, hey, this guy that we paid a pretty significant price for in the off season he's not getting the job done for us. And so, I would say, through the first half of the season, this has obviously been a big W for the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard not to know, or at least here on this show. And I think the Jets haven't exactly been like Flyers management when it comes to Dubois saying, hey, if we don't want you to leave. I think they were trying to work out a trade, that worked out for all sides, and both sides seem happy in the summer, but I think the Jets are certainly coming on top, and you can see by the numbers. But when you look at the Jets and the trade deadline coming up, have you considered what the Jets would look to add? Is there anything you could add to a team that's currently leading the league in points percentage?
Well, to me, it's like there's no desperate needs, right? I mean, at some point you're going to expect to get Connor back, and that certainly adds some offense. I think the way the Jets are constructed is probably like you do what a lot of top contending teams do, is you look for depth guys, pardon me, who give you a depth forward who's going to help. And to me, for the Jets, that is probably, you want a depth scorer, because you've seen, like, the third line, say, for the Jets is like one of the most reliable groups that you can trot out there. And so it's like, well, you don't really need to go get another guy who can check on that line. You've got a line there that does that job. And so, but to that end, it also means the Jets can be kind of choosy about who they go get. Like, I don't think they have to go out and make some blockbuster addition. It's, go find a veteran forward who's got an expiring deal. Guys who I think about guys like Adam Henrique or Vladimir Tarasenko, because I don't think you want to have to pay some massive price. And at this point in the season, I think there's still a lot of teams that aren't ready to throw in the towel. But I do think a team like the Ducks or the Senators, they're closer to making that decision to say, all right, the guys who have expiring deals, we'll move them out. So, but given where the Jets are in the standings, there's also no urgency. They can kind of wait this out until the time comes, and you find a veteran forward and you find a veteran defenseman, and don't pay through the nose to get them, because you're not trying to remodel your roster. You're trying to just kind of supplement and keep things going, because obviously, what are you complaining about with the best record in the league?
That's true. And you look at some of these deals at the deadline, I think of the Florida Panthers with these Giroux trade and the Sherrod trade. I mean, these guys are trading away so much and getting bounced out early. So, I think maybe they'll reassess early. They do have some injuries right now. As you mentioned, Kyle Connor, he's on his way back, could be very soon. Mark Scheifele is currently banged up, so maybe you'd want to get someone to, could fill that role. They're going with Adam Lowry right now as the top line center, with Nemestikov number 2. It's, when you look at the standings, it's crazy to see. I don't know if we've seen this with 2 Canadian teams at the top of the league, Vancouver, Winnipeg. And I'm looking at the last 10, Edmonton, 10-0, which is crazy. And Toronto, while they haven't really been winning in regulation, they're still in there in a playoff spot. I know Leafs fans are probably unhappy with blowing the leads in the last couple. I've seen that, and we're going to get a good look at them here next weekend. Not this weekend, but the weekend after.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to rank the Canadian teams as a shot at a cup, is this the year that it finally happens for the first time since '93? And who gives Canada the best chance?
Well, this is, coming into the year, the Oilers were one of the cup favorites. They might have been the cup favorite think about it. And they got such a miserable start that everybody kind of forgot about them, and now that they've kind of come roaring back, I think the Oilers, if they get goaltending, I think they have a great chance because of McDavid and Draisaitl. That having that wild card that other teams don't get to play gives them a chance to have kind of that higher ceiling. Now, having said that, they've had McDavid for plenty of years in the past, and it still hasn't materialized into a Stanley Cup. So this is hardly a sure thing. But I think when you look like Canucks, I did not have super high hopes for this year. I mean, there was signs that things could be better if Patrick Demko was healthy and that. But I'm still call me skeptical that as high as they are in the standings. I look at the Canucks, and they're a team. We talk about the Kings, how their shooting percentage has fallen off. Well, the Canucks have been riding high shooting percentage all year, and that's the kind of thing that variance can come and get you at some inopportune times. And so, if that's part of the reason for your success, I would sort of tread cautiously about the Canucks. So, in that, having looked at that, I'm kind of like the Oilers and the Jets are the two teams that I would have higher hopes for. Toronto, I'm in Toronto right now, and I honestly, I do not have expectations of this team to win the Stanley Cup. I guess, what, if Joseph Wall comes back and is able to kind of stabilize their goaltending, then maybe there's something there. I'm still not sure that'll be enough, but I've got a daughter who lives and dies with Leafs games, and when she sees Ilya Samsonov take the net last night, it was agonizing for her, and I can feel that from what goes on with Leaf fans, and so I don't think the way things are going in there in Toronto, I don't think you can expect them a serious cup contender.
They lost to a team that got to the rink like 30 minutes before the game yesterday.
Yeah.
It's a very Leafs thing to do. Just when you think, it seems like every game, against Columbus or whoever team, when they're huge favorites, they don't deliver. And this was a game where, you think they'd have every advantage yesterday and lose. One thing for me about Edmonton, I know they moved Evander Kane to the second line, but their forward depth, like, they're going to have to make some move
suspect
at the deadline when you're rocking Warren Fogle and Ryan McLeod on your second line with Draisaitl. Their third line, now they moved up Kane because McLeod's hurt. He didn't skate or whatever, but Janmark, Derek Ryan, and Connor Brown on your third line. I mean, I would have to take the Jets' depth over the Oilers' depth for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's sort of been the calling card here for the Jets this year, right? Is that their forward depth has been excellent, right? That guys like Niederreiter and Lowry and Appleton and Nemesnikov, guys who don't draw the headlines, but go and look at what they've done, and you're like, yeah, they keep winning with those guys on the ice, and those guys keep outshooting their opponents and keep outscoring their opponents. Well, yeah, that's the name of the game, and so it's great. And look, when I talk about Connor McDavid, there are a few guys in the league who I'm gonna kind of say, yeah, he's the kind of guy who makes that big a difference. But otherwise, yeah, it's the depth of the Jets is huge strength, and that's why in playoff series, if say you ended up going against the Oilers and you find a way to neutralize McDavid, well, then what do the Oilers do, right? Like if you're the Jets and Kyle Connor gets neutralized, you go, okay, well, we've got a bunch of other guys who can produce. If McDavid gets neutralized, well, the Oilers they better hope it's Draisaitl, because a lot of the other guys in that lineup are not super reliable. So
yeah,
that's sort of been the story of the Oilers for the past few years.
For years, and I think it's part of management not being able to get some quality players behind them. I know people want to say, "Oh, you can't win with McDavid making $12.5 million," but I mean, they've had so many years here to put some, at least draft some players that can make an impact. They haven't done that and haven't acquired. So I'm interested to see what happens with them. So much pressure there. Draisaitl's got 2 more this year, and next year at 8.5, he's due for a big raise. So I'm always fascinated by the Oilers and the Canadian teams. We are at the midpoint of the season. I don't know if you've got a ballot or been keeping track of who you want
no ballots, but
for the awards here. It seems like a number of, I don't know who you have leading your Hart Trophy for this season. It seems like, in the 80s, it was Gretzky, Lemieux alternating. They're like the only two guys that could win it. I've had a number of guys the last couple of years, and it seems like it's just the McDavid award now, especially when we talk about their depth, right?
Yeah. Now, it does. I think if I had to vote, kind of right now at this point in the season, I'd give it to McKinnon. I think it's been awesome. But because McDavid missed a handful of games and the Oilers got off to such a slow start, it has sort of opened up the field in a way that I think coming into the season, McDavid was a pretty heavy favorite to win the Hart Trophy again. And he's played really well. It's not as though his production has really tailed off that much, but I think given the time missed and the fact that the Oilers kind of struggled early, it's allowed other players kind of get their name in there. So McKinnon is, as I say, he would be my choice. I think for a good stretch of the first half of the season, Artemi Panarin had a legit case because the Rangers were doing so well, and he was the guy kind of driving their results. But I can sit here in the midpoint of the season and say it's McKinnon, but watch out in the rearview mirror, because if McDavid continues to score the way he does, then there's a pretty good chance that he's going to take it again.
Yeah, one thing about the Avalanche here, Scott, I just saw a report from Adrian Dater that Nikushkin is entering the player assistance program. Landeskog's been out. Lekkonen's out. You talk about Edmonton not having the depth. Colorado's team that had so much depth when they won the Cup.
Yeah.
And their top line now, McKinnon ran with Jonathan Drouin, who's been about point per game in his last 13. But their second line, Kiviranta, Colton, Logan O'Connor. This isn't, for the Jets in the Central Division, and you're looking at who can catch them. Just the way Colorado has with all the injuries, you have to take the Jets' depth over Colorado's depth. But the top end, I would agree. Edmonton and Colorado. I mean, McDavid, McKinnon, these are all world players.
Yeah, well, and those teams effectively, they lean on those guys. They have to, right? They can't rely on third and fourth line production just because their players aren't at that level. And so, if you're Colorado and you have McKinnon and Makar, and both of those guys are top 5 players in the league, probably both, and so they can make up for a lot of shortcomings elsewhere in your roster. But it also means you're running with a pretty narrow window, right? That if anything happens to those guys, well, it becomes really tough. And so, if you go back to when they were winning the Cup, right? McKinnon missed some time during that year. Well, Randon moved over to center and was great at center, and you're like, oh wow, see how good the Avalanche are even without Nathan McKinnon. Yeah, because they had the depth, right? Like Lekkonen was a really good player for them, and they had Nichushkin and they had Landeskog, and you kind of when you start taking all those guys away, well, it becomes a different game for them.
Yeah, and you mentioned Makar. I mean, if you had to do, or halfway through the season, do your award nomination. I mean, for Norris, it's pretty much hard. You have McDavid, McKinnon. It seems like Norris is Quinn Hughes versus Makar.
Yeah, and like that's where the way the odds break down pretty much everywhere. And Hughes is the favorite, but not by a lot, and that seems, I guess, about right. But it's almost the same case as I would have taking McKinnon. Yes, I would vote probably Hughes for today, but if Cale Makar manages to stay healthy for the rest of the season, I think there's a pretty good chance he can catch him. I mean that's sort of been the thing for Makar throughout his career, is that will he play enough? That he's had a tendency to miss some games, and that's really the only thing that's probably that gets in his way, because when he does play, he's phenomenal.
Yeah, he's been banged up this year, just in and out of the lineup, nothing serious. And that kind of opened the door last year. We thought Josh Morrissey was going to get a nomination. He had an exceptional season. I think he's just outside the top 3 right now. We'll see how the second half goes, but that is one thing for sure. And with the other awards we got our eyes on here, Connor Hellebuyck with the Vezina, leading the league in goals saved above expected. He's got over a 3-goal lead over Thatcher Demko. You'd have to put him in the driver's seat right now if you had to put a ballot together.
Yeah, I would. And in the same way that, I talk about, McDavid, because of his track record, you think he can come back, and Makar, because of his track record, you think he could rally from behind.
Mm-hmm.
While Hellebuyck, because of his track record, you think it's really tough for anybody to catch him, right? Like it would seem really unlikely that Connor Hellebuyck would really fall off, have a poor second half. The degrees of how well he plays aren't going to range down to, subpar or something like that, because it's just, that hasn't happened. So it becomes really tough then for, whether it's Thatcher Demko or anyone else to play well enough to then overcome what at this point you would consider a deficit against Connor Hellebuyck. So yeah, to me that's, and one of the things too is that the Jets tend to play Hellebuyck a lot. I mean, they have for years, but that's also, when you're looking at the overall value that he provides, the guy who plays 66 or 67 games, naturally going to give you more value than the guy who plays 55. And so when he plays them at a high level, that's what you get.
Yeah, and I do see in chat, George Earl says Helly's a legit hard contender, and we haven't really seen goalies win it lately, but I do wonder if he would even get some consideration as well.
Yeah, I think usually what happens with that is that if there isn't a standout skater, that increases the chances of a goalie. Like a couple years ago, Shesterkin was a finalist, right? And he had a great year, but it was like the only way he was going to actually win is if there wasn't a high-end skater, because that just tends to be the voting. The voting, they're like, well, they have the Vezina Trophy, and unless you're Dominic Hasek, you're not going to be deemed more valuable than the top skater. And you can get into a long debate about goaltender value and whether I think most years you could say the most valuable goaltender is the most valuable player, but it tends not to be how the voting goes.
Yeah, last goalie to win it, Carey Price, 14-15, and Jose Theodore in 01-02. I think I've used both those guys on Puck Doku. Not sure if you're a big Puck Doku guy, Scott. But
I like it. Sometimes I get frustrated by it, but it's good.
Hey, it's good to get the brain going early in the morning when I wake up. Well, Scott, thank you so much for your time. It was great here connecting with you, talking with the NHL season and the Jets. So thank you again so much, and hopefully we can do this again soon. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. Anytime. Thanks a lot, Michael.
No, thank you. There he is, Scott Cullen. Give him a follow on Twitter by Scott Cullen. And he's at McKeen's Hockey and Pinnacle. And he is tweeting, if you're into the betting, he is tweeting out his odds and stuff every day. So worthy follow. We're going to talk a little CFL offseason hot stove heating up. Talk a little Jets as well. Jeff Hamilton on the way. But first, Hustlers got a couple words, and then hopefully Jeff's in here.
We were just talking about the continued work to do that the organization has via attendance. I will say this to you. The answer to all of this is to get back and regain the season tickets that were lost over the last couple seasons. And that, I believe, is the number one priority right now of the organization. If you are a lapsed season ticket holder, or frankly, someone that wasn't in a position before, but maybe are right now, whether in a full or in sharing, get in touch with the Winnipeg Jets, or help give us an email at winnipegsportstalk@gmail.com, and I'll help put you in touch with some folks. That is how this is going to be solved. I mean, the stress on any organization trying to fill 3,000 seats a game, on Tuesday nights throughout the winter, is tough. And listen, the long-term viability of the franchise depends on it, and that is just simply a fact. So let's hopefully see some more butts in seats. Certainly, this will be a great crowd tonight, and I think a lot of that is Bedard related. We've got some seats available on Saturday. That one should be full. Saturday night game against Philly. And then next Tuesday night, and again, there's great deals on Tuesday night games as well. We saw a pretty good crowd on there. I mean, it always kind of seems more than maybe you see that final number, but the bottom line is this team is getting the job done, and it would be great to see maybe some of the folks that had, for whatever reason, not been able to get out to the rink earlier this season, get back in there. And I think that positive momentum, both on the ice and in the stands, will only be good for the organization. It's incredibly important. So winnipegjets.com/tickets. Let's see out at the rink and keep this thing rolling with positive momentum on the ice and in the stands for the Winnipeg Jets. Got to thank our friends at Wallace & Wallace. You know that they're the fencing and overhead door specialists. Man, we're into 2024. Been doing it for almost 80 years, since 1946. They've been serving residential and commercial customers. And of course, we've seen their fences and trucks all over the city. What you might not know, though, is that they are the leaders in overhead garage doors, with as the Clopay dealer in Manitoba, the largest selection for your home. But with it getting pretty darn cold coming up over these next few days, this is the part of the year where your garage door will work the hardest. And the right time to prevent downtime this winter is right now. You can give Wallace & Wallace a call to book your inspection and maintenance service. Call today for residential and commercial overhead door sales and service. There's only one name or two you need to know, and that is Wallace & Wallace. And of course, guys, we've been talking a lot about the new year. No one's looking as good as the Winnipeg Jets right now, but if you want to look as good as you can in the new year, get on down to F Apparel and talk to the fellas about maybe an upgrade in your menswear department. F Apparel features beautiful, custom-made to fit suits starting at just $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and the biggest and best selection of menswear accessories in town. And by the way, if you've got an especially big year, i.e. tying the knot this year, or in a wedding party, make sure to talk to the guys at F Apparel about a 15% discount when you and your fellas get done up for the big day at F Apparel. Pop by and see them, 190 Smith Street downtown, or check them out online and make an appointment if you want at that's EPHapparel.com.
Thank you, Hassan. Yes, if you were listening to that, that was from last week, so the Jets are not playing Chicago tonight. That was a recorded one from last week. But thank you, Hustler. He's on his way back. He did drive to Kansas City for the playoff game. Imagine driving that long just to sit and freeze outside. I'm sure we'll hear all about it tomorrow. But hey, it's Monday, and it's not a Monday without Jeff Hamilton of the Winnipeg Free Press. Jeff, great to have you on. Nice talking to you. How was your weekend, Jeff? Any garage sailing out in -20?
Always a pleasure, man. Yeah, nope. There's actually a season for garage sailing. It kicks up in around May long weekends, a little bit of an unofficial time, and then it wraps up by September long weekend, man. Maybe a couple more weekends after that for the hardcores, but by January you're just dreaming about them. You're just dreaming about them coming around the corner with that beautiful weather. But we're getting reminded day in and day out right now that it's far from garage sale weather, far from summer weather, more hockey weather, more CFL off-season weather. So my weekend was taking it easy, watching sports and getting ready for this interview. So here we are.
Yeah, get ready. And yes, for all your weather junkies out there, -21 right now feels like -34. Ooh, and that's I don't know your preferred weather site. I'm weathernetwork.com. I don't know. You got it. You got one?
Yeah, I'm a weather. So mine's weather.com. We did this. We did this in the press room one time. Like I just used whatever on my app, and there was four of us, four different phones, and we all checked we all were looking ahead to the weather, and we all had different forecasts. For some reason, all of our phones had different default weather spots. So mine's weather.com. Sounds about as legit as you can get.
It's legit.
I don't know, but yeah, it's the feels like that sucks, man. It's the minus is whatever. It's the feels like that really gets you. I haven't driven, I don't think, in the last 3 days because I just don't love driving in this weather either.
Yeah, I've been driving. I'm good. I got the winter tires. Haven't had to plug my car in yet, but I probably should. But no one, as much as I want to talk about what our favorite app is on our phone, we got to get to the real topics. And I was looking at your Twitter on the weekend.
Anyone still here?
Yeah, people are here. A bit less because the Jets lost for the first time.
This is a novelty show. You're hosting. This is a big deal right now. This is a Monday. Wrap around. They're expecting you to bring the energy up, and we're loving it. Monday, let's go.
Hey, I did get. I don't know if you saw, but Hustler and I went to the premium suite for the Jets game. I put that out on our Instagram and TikTok. Check that out. I got like 20K views each. So although a lot of people bashing my voiceover. So,
Wow,
here,
weekend.
big weekend. A lot of alerts on my phone for those. I got to turn them off. But you tweeted out Friday, and I think this perked up the ears, Jeff. Sorry, that's habit. I'm hearing QB Chris Streveler is strongly considering a return to the CFL this year, and that the Bombers have started preliminary talks about a return to Winnipeg. There are other teams that are interested, but feels like the Bombers are the front runners for the 29-year-old. I know Twitter's only 144 characters, and you expanded that in your column at the Free Press. But what more can you tell us about the Bombers and Chris Streveler?
Well, I just think it's that time. It's that time. I think CFL fans, particularly those in Winnipeg, have been waiting for, if you will, about every year it seems to be, is Chris Streveler coming to the CFL? Is Chris Streveler coming to the CFL? And of course, for the last, since he left at the end of 2019 season, been no. Well, fast forward to today, he secured, a tier of the NFL pension, which I think is a little bit confused amongst fans. I've seen some people thinking he's getting some 6-figure annual salary for the rest of his life starting like today. That's not the case. It's more like 22 grand American starting at the age of 55. So he's got still some time to even collect. But anyways, he secured that nonetheless. I think the opportunities out there, he just came off a workout with the Chicago Bears. Not sure where that went. I don't think that went anywhere since there's been no ensuing reports of him signing with them. I just think it's that time. It's that time where he's at least exploring the idea of coming back to the CFL. And it's more than just exploring. I think, when all said is done here over the next few months, unless he's offered an opportunity to play in the NFL, he's going to come here. I think this will turn out to be his best option in 2024. And so again, there's that, there's still obviously, if he does get an opportunity in the NFL, he's going to pursue that and will obviously pursue that. But I think right now it's looking like a CFL return. And I think the question then becomes, well, why would the Winnipeg Blue Bombers be the front runners for it? Surely Chris Streveler wants a starter salary. Obviously, the Bombers have and are very happy with Zach Collaros under center. So I think that's a little bit of a misunderstanding. I don't think Chris Streveler is looking for $300,000-$400,000 plus for starter money. I think he's looking for an opportunity to come back to the CFL, and he loves Winnipeg. He loves the city. There's lots to offer for him here, including on the field and off the field. And I think those conversations, I know those conversations have certainly started, and we'll see what happens here in the coming days. And I don't even think weeks, but certainly over the next month or so, we'll probably get an answer to that question.
So what does that mean then for Drew Brown and Dakota Prukop? And is this, Zach Collaros, he's got 2 years left on his deal. They view Streveler as a long-term, what is he, 29, you said? So
yeah, 29, yeah.
How is this viewed within the organization? Because I think it's, interesting that they would, how are you going to fit it all under the cap when you're hearing about big decisions with Schoen and Oliveira, and we'll talk about that. But how would they fit in Streveler with the current depth chart?
Well, that's the big question, right? I think that's the big question for fans, big question for media and us following it and trying to report, how do you get this done? To answer the first part, Drew Brown, this was talked about and reported, GM Kyle Walters said last week, all but said, Drew Brown is going to pursue a better opportunity, an opportunity where, he gets a chance to play. He's not necessarily chasing the money. I do think money is certainly an element here. I don't think the Bombers have, the money that he's looking to make this season. And even though they, would probably be interested in paying him handsomely to be a backup, I just don't think that's what Drew Brown wants. Well, we know that's not what Drew Brown wants. He wants more than just a paycheck. He wants an opportunity to compete. And so those opportunities don't necessarily are like hey, we're signing you to a $500,000 contract. You're our number one quarterback. I don't think any of those exist, but there are a few opportunities, particularly in Ottawa, where it's okay, we'll sign you to a $175,000 contract plus all these incentives for playing time, saying that, and promising that you're going to come into camp as with a legitimate chance to win the job. And I think that's what Drew Brown's looking for. I think that's where Drew Brown ends up, is a place like Ottawa, where Jeremiah Masoli, coming off, another injury, an Achilles injury after having a knee injury, he's not going to be ready for the start of the season. You have Dustin Crum, who had some glimpses of brilliance in his first year. He's still very much a rookie. That was his rookie year, his first year in the CFL. Drew Brown has a few years under his belt. He's learned from players like Zach Collaros. He offers more, I would argue, stability, even though he hasn't been in that system under Bobby Dice, hasn't been, been with the team like Dustin Crum has. I think he's the guy that you'd want as far as experience and skill set. So that's ultimately where it lands. And then when you look at Chris Streveler, like I said, I don't think you're looking, if a team is out there and wants to go out and give Chris Streveler $300,000 plus to be their quarterback, he's not coming to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And so I think the reality here is the Bombers are going to have to offer him something much less. I don't think we're even talking $200,000 here. We're talking south of that for sure. When you mention, other guys like Brady Oliveira and Dalton Schoen, guys they also, are interested in signing. But I do think he brings a uniqueness in that brings a uniqueness on the field. The packages we saw in 2019, the skill set that Chris Streveler has, you have to think he's improved as a thrower, but he also has that element to the run game to his offense. And so that's obviously a unique thing that the Bombers would want to exploit. And then for Chris Streveler, if you're not making the extra money, from the bigger salary that you might be able to get somewhere else, I think you get something special here in Winnipeg, which includes, I think there's some opportunities financially off the field. And certainly anyone that, would have seen him in 2019 and the buzz he created, you don't have that opportunity anywhere else but Winnipeg. And so that's why I think it's an intriguing situation here as we inch towards free agency.
Yeah, I wonder how they would use him. And we've seen he gets compared a lot to Taysom Hill, I guess, a guy who's a quarterback, with the Saints, but he's now a tight end. He runs
more in the way he's versatile and gadgety, right? He's not a guy that he's good enough that you can rely on him to throw, but a lot of that sizzle or dazzle is going to come from the other more unorthodox elements of a quarterback's game, and that's why you look at Taysom Hill and in New Orleans and you compare him to a guy like Chris Streveler, because you're not leaning on him to be your starter, you're leaning on him to be your change-up quarterback that you can put on short yardage and then continue to use and have the trust in him to make all the plays in your playbook and more.
Yeah, if they bring in Streveler, you think that means Prukop is out? Because he's been done such a great job at short yardage. He's automatic pretty much the last couple of years here.
I think you would have. I think you would have to. I think that would be. I don't know if it'd be a tough decision, because you're right. Dakota Prukop has been really good in those spots. Brought that element. I think we're talking about Chris Streveler, where he wasn't just a short yardage threat. He could be used for other parts of the offense as well. I don't think as well as Chris Streveler has been used and would be used if he was to rejoin the Bombers. But certainly, it'd be a tough call. But I don't think you would have. I don't think you would have him back to do short yardage. I think that would be what Chris Streveler would be used for. And then it would kind of change the Bombers' philosophy with their quarterbacks, where you'd look at Chris Streveler as being a number 2 / short yardage, rather than it being typically a third quarterback that's your short yardage, and then the development guy becomes your third quarterback. And so what does that mean for reps in practice? Would that be a spot that would be properly utilized to develop? I mean, if you're giving you're obviously giving a majority of reps to Zach Collaros. You want to be giving as many reps as you can to a guy like Chris Streveler if you're going to incorporate him in your offense the way that you would have to or would justify and what you'd likely have to be paying him. So what would that mean for a third quarterback? Who knows? At this point in time, I think Bomber fans don't really care. I think there's so much buzz around a Chris Streveler that I don't think there'd be a lot of sleep lost on trying to figure out who the third guy on the depth chart was when you have the guy who captured an entire city by wearing that fur coat come back all these years later after spending some time in the NFL.
Yeah, definitely got excited reading your tweet. And for the Bombers, they're trying to win, keep it going and win this year. Return to lost count of how many straight Grey Cups. This would be a 5th in a row, and they want to get the 6th as well. Well, that's here, not this season, but the season after.
And the other thing too, Remo, just sort of interrupt, but the other thing too is, and I'm not saying that this is the case, but how many more years is Zach Collaros going to be playing? He's up. He's under contract until 2025. So is there what's the plan after that? Is Zach Collaros going to want to be playing more football into his late 30s? Is he going to have seen enough, want to move on with family and other opportunities. And where does that leave a guy like Chris Streveler, who at that time would be about 31 years old? Could he have developed into the system? Does he become your starter, a guy? I think that's another kind of opportunity here with Chris Streveler, is to kind of play, maybe have the guy, the baton passed to him in a couple of years if he joins for the next 2 seasons.
Mm-hmm. The other, Bombers free agents we want to talk about. Countdown of February 13, free agency. Brady Oliveira, Dalton Schoen. We just had last Jets season. It was Scheifele and Hellbuck. What are they going to do with these guys? They're both in their final year. Well, they both signed long-term. Brady Oliveira and Dalton Schoen, do we see a similar fate, or how do you see this shaking out? And what did you make of Brady Oliveira's, cryptic tweet where the CFL tweeted out, "Sky's the limit for Brady Oliveira in 2024, but where?" With using the emoji with the monocle, and Brady responds, "So where will I end up?" And did the emoji, maybe my favorite one. We can do our emoji power poll after, and use the money bag emoji, the money bag one. Jeff, what's going to happen with Brady here?
So first off, just to maybe address the tweet, that is kind of who Brady is, man. He's a fun guy. He's a confident guy. I mean, he's a guy that, if you're really old school and traditional, you might be insulted by it, weirdly enough, right? But he's just a guy who is confident and likes to create buzz. And anyone who follows him on social media, I mean, this is more than just creating a buzz on X or Twitter. This is a guy whose brand is about creating engagement, conversation. So I put a lot of that to it, right? You see a lot of cryptic tweets in the CFL from guys who are usually jaded. This isn't a situation where you have a jaded Brady Oliveira. That being said, we are ticking towards February 13th free agency, and as much as Brady Oliveira would love to be in Winnipeg, and as much as the Winnipeg Blue Bombers would love to have Brady Oliveira as their running back, they need to mutually agree on what the value of his contract will be. And, in my conversations, in my reports about this, is Brady Oliveira believes that he, is in a situation to be a bit of a trendsetter here, to reset the market for running backs in the CFL, like we've seen wide receivers, like we saw Kenny Lawler do it when he went to Edmonton, like we saw Geno Lewis do it when he went to Edmonton last year, to set the market, to raise the value of running backs. Now, we're probably talking here about $250,000, right? And while, I think a lot of people look at that price tag, look at what Brady Oliveira brings to the table. He's a punishing runner. We all saw his season last year. He was a finalist for the most outstanding player award, the winner out of the West. And to many, I don't know if you could say snub, because, obviously Chad Kelly had a good season and was deserving of it too, but certainly put up a fight for second. Is a guy who, when you saw the Bombers need whatever it was in a game, whether it was a spark, a big run to shift momentum, a touchdown. We saw Brady Oliveira lead the league in those. When they needed to run down the clock at the end of games, they handed the rock to 20, and he carried it through and through, and would cap off games. He did everything they asked for him, and now he wants to get paid for it. And so I think as much as there's some talk about Brady Oliveira going to the NFL, and certainly that's something that he wants, I really think it's a situation where they need to decide how close they want to get to that number, because I think it's $250,000 that Brady Oliveira is looking to get. How close can the Bombers get to that number? We don't know. Where is that conversation? How do the negotiations go? Because I also think, as much as, while Brady Oliveira is certainly probably worth that, I think some of that money needs to go to your offensive line. And if other guys are getting, raises as well, you need to get your money. You need to get your value here. But I also think you need to leave some money over here for the offensive line to get signed, to make sure you have those guys there. Because, when it comes to, receivers making big money and their value to a team, they're often viewed as individuals in a sense, where it's like they're going up to make big plays, they're getting open, they're doing all, you see a lot of this talent that is described by and warrants these $300,000 contracts. When it comes to the running game, a lot of people look at, okay, how's the offensive line? How's the blocking of receivers like Rasheed Bailey and Drew Wolitarsky? Those guys created a ton of lanes for the running game. And the offense, the other threats of receivers. So there's lots that needs to gets considered here. I think Brady Oliveira needs to realize that he's in Winnipeg. There's other opportunity for him here, like there is opportunity for Chris Streveler being a local kid. But that being said, I think this is, it's not as clear cut or it's not as obvious to me as I think we're going to have to figure out, because it's no slam dunk he's going to be on this team next year.
Fascinating. And, you and Hustler did the percentages on Scheifele and Hell. We all remember the percentages segment where it got all mixed up. I mean, who's more likely to return in blue and gold, Schoen or Brady, or neither, or both, as we saw with Scheifele and Hellbeck? It just seems maybe not, very similar, but it does seem two, players important impact on the team. I know they do also have Lawler and Dembski locked up, so maybe they would be okay with losing Schoen, and maybe they have other priorities. And you believe running backs. Your philosophy on running backs is, well, you could plug anyone in as long as you have a good O-line. So I don't know where you stand on having both those guys, or one or none.
Well, I think it's hard to do percentages wise, because
don't do percentages. Yeah. We did that. It gets confusing.
I think you can say this. I think there's going to be a honest effort to get both of them. Yeah. So there's a lot of these situations where guys play themselves out of contracts and it's not even a conversation. I think there is going to be an effort to reach each one of those players' demands, if you will, or try to get as close to it, because I think the Bombers believe both those guys are very important. You look at a guy like Dalton Schoen, he's just a special CFL player. He hasn't got much interest in the NFL, but he's been able to adopt the CFL game incredibly well, including, the waggle and all the nuances that come with the Canadian game. And of course, Brady Oliveira is a great player, but he's also a local kid, right? I mean, this is the perfect pass off from Andrew Harris, right? So you don't want to lose that either. And so I think I think there's a really good chance of both them coming back. I ultimately, because of the talent and a Kenny Lawler, I put Brady Oliveira as a little bit more of need. If you're going to spend $200,000 on one of them, I tend to lean over to Brady Oliveira. I just don't think that there's another player. It's interesting, right? Because and this is not from anyone I've spoken to, but AJ Ouellette is having a tough time signing in Toronto right now. And so, his value would be less than Brady Oliveira's. Would there be interest to go try to capture a guy like him, or vice versa, like swap, those two teams? Not trying to create rumors here, but those have to be the conversations. Because if you're not going to sign a guy like Brady Oliveira, you better have a better backup plan, because it's not in-house. And, you like to flex your muscles on offense with a good run game. That's what the Bombers need. So I do think Brady Oliveira becomes the higher priority, but I do think there will be a big effort to sign both them. And we've seen crazier things happen. We'll see what happens if the Bombers and GM Kyle Walters can pull that off. Yeah,
the CFL really, this offseason news cycle is great for us. I know they're signing guys every so often. So pops up. I'm fascinated to see what happens. We have seen some QB movement as we just wrap up CFL. Again, the countdown to Feb 13 free agency. McLeod Bethel-Thompson, he's back with Edmonton. The quarterback carousel CFL, very interesting with a number of guys. You mentioned Masoli already, restructuring. Bo Levi, restructuring. But McLeod, they cut Cornelius. He thought they gave him a pretty, could tell at the time, wasn't a great contract. They had to pay him $100,000 to go away. And they got MBT for $500,000. What do you make about that? And what does it mean for Trey Ford, who did such a great job getting them their first win to break the streak?
Yeah, what does it mean? It means that Chris Jones doesn't trust Trey Ford to play well enough to have him keep his job for another season. I think that's what ultimately it comes down to. There's, I think we saw Trey, which the irony in all of that is the only reason Chris Jones has a job, you could argue, this season is because of the play that Trey Ford had down the stretch last season. As I'll remind everybody, it wasn't until the Elks started the season 0-8 that Chris Jones begrudgingly put in Trey Ford behind center because he just didn't have any options. He exhausted all his options at that point. So it was almost kind of like, okay, see what you can do. And then all of a sudden this kid started turning what turned into an eyesore franchise. And I'll remind you, they were 4-14 under Chris Jones in 2022, turned an eyesore franchise into something worth watching each week. And it's not that I think that it's the wrong move to pick up McLeod Bethel-Thompson, because McLeod Bethel-Thompson is a reliable CFL quarterback. There's certainly a level of trust in his abilities in this game, more so than a Trey Ford, who, while had these really, really great moments last season and spectacular highlight reel plays where he used both his arms and his legs, there wasn't enough to argue that he's a consistent guy. And now that there's more tape on him, now that teams have 10 games of tape on him, we'll be able to game plan for him this year. I mean, he was only bound to regress this season. And so when you look at, if you look at how he played last year, and again, there were certainly some flashes, I don't think it was enough to suggest that he's going to win you anything, let alone, get you in the playoffs, let alone win a Grey Cup. The thing is, I don't know if McLeod Bethel-Thompson, at the price tag that you're paying him, does that either. And so unless Chris Jones is, what is happening here is they're bringing McLeod Bethel-Thompson in, and I think this is a benefit to Trey Ford. There's no doubt about it, because Trey Ford did not learn under any real experienced quarterbacks last year. So he gets a chance to sit beside McLeod Bethel-Thompson, go through his process, answer some of the questions that he couldn't get answers to from Taylor Cornelius and the other list of quarterbacks that the Elks had, inexperienced guys. So there is a benefit there, but I just don't think McLeod Bethel-Thompson, after a year in the USFL last year where, he was good, but even before, when he was with Toronto, and of course he was on the roster that beat the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, he wasn't on the field when they mounted their comeback and won. That was Chad Kelly. But he did put up really good numbers in the CFL. My thing about McLeod Bethel-Thompson is he was in the East. That's even the year they won, I mean, it wasn't like the Argos were dominating the East Division. They've kind of squeaked into the playoffs. So now he's in the West, guiding an Edmonton team that still hasn't been able to figure it out under years in Chris Jones. So it comes across as a little bit of a desperate and weird shot against Trey Ford, who was not even given a heads up or told, hey, man, this is what we're doing. This is to help benefit you and the team as a whole. They just signed this guy to a contract, and now here we are talking about it.
Hey, I don't know. I might be done taking shots at the East, Jeff. They won the last 2 Grey Cups. So... And we call them.
And the East certainly took the right steps. That's the thing.
Yeah.
You can, I'm not. I mean, I don't mind taking a shot at the East, because if you look at historical records, it's not great, and it does create. We all know that winning your division, is there an easier way to get to a championship game in any other professional sport? I don't think so. So and then once you get there, as we saw the last 2 years, and we saw it in those years that Calgary made it to those Grey Cups and couldn't get it done. It's not always the best team in the regular season, but the best team that on that day.
That's fair. And who would have thought, Jeff, that we could do close to half hour talking about the CFL on January 15 when it's minus 32 outside. That's football weather in Kansas City. But I have to ask you before we wrap up here about the Jets. I mean, they lost since first regulation since December 12? What's going on here with this Jets team? Jeff. Second time I've done that. Those bunch of losers, right? No, I'm just kidding around. But
yeah, right off. I mean, let's cancel the parade. I think as you've been talking lots about, Remo, it's the end of a 9-game in 15-day stretch, and I think you started to see some of those cracks. Whether it started in that game against Columbus, despite them winning 5-0. I don't think we know they weren't happy with their performance. They just had some great finish, and I think that bled into some of the last couple games. And you look at a team like Philly. I think Philly came in and played a strong road game and just played tough, right? Just played kind of they were at the end of a road trip. They were in Mini the night before and just played a strong game. But I think the Jets they're eventually going to lose games. They weren't as impressive as that 8-game stretch was, I don't think anybody thought they were going to be going, running the rest of the table, and their time came. So I don't know, not a lot of panic. I don't think that should be setting in with these guys just yet.
No, of course I'm just having fun here. I mean, what they lost for the first time in 9 games, but I think you're seeing, you mentioned the schedule. You're seeing some guys banged up, maybe just playing Ehlers. He's out with maintenance. Mark Scheifele missed last game with injury. You think having Adam Lowry at top, moving him to the top line center, just shows, hey, these guys are going to look to add a center as we approach the deadline, and maybe not, look at a center at the deadline. Is that, you think that's the priority for them?
I think they got, if they were wavering on doing it, I think they got a great reminder of what can happen, right? And Kevin Cheveldayoff addressed that, even before the game. He talked about injuries, right? Then later that night, he kind of jinxed Mark Scheifele, and Mark Scheifele got hurt later. But that's the reality. I mean, he was just speaking to the reality of the sport, the reality of the game. And now that you're looking at having to put a guy like Adam Lowry in your, with him and Kyle Connor out, with Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor out, having to put a guy like Adam Lowry, who you really, really, really love, on your third line, playing his role as a shutdown guy, and who's chipping in offense, who also has that element of offense on that line, to a guy who's now needs to drive your top line. That's not as well as the Jets have been playing. That's not a lineup that is going to get them very, very far in the playoffs. So at this point, I think it is. I always imagined the Jets were going to go swing as hard as they could. I'm not suggesting they're going to empty the cupboards, but just where this team has put themselves, where they position themselves, where it looks like they'll be come trade deadline. I think if you're not having serious conversations about bringing in, some reinforcements to build around this team, and to help and support them and reward them for what we've seen over the last few months, then I'd be very surprised. And like I said, I just think those injuries right now is just a reminder that those injuries are inevitable come the playoffs. We know how grueling the playoffs are. We know how grueling it is to get to the Stanley Cup Finals, and you need reinforcements. So I would not be surprised if the Jets were not working the phones, and if this wasn't a stark reminder of why to do just that.
One thing the Jets have done really well, or Kevin Cheveldayoff, at the trade deadline, when it's time to sell, they've sold and make moves, and when it's time to buy, they've done the right moves. When they're in position, they definitely add. So I'm curious to see what they do this year, as the team is in uncharted territory here, first in the league. I don't know if you knew that, in points percentage, Jeff. So
yeah.
So
we've all been paying attention. Haven't quite been marveling at the standings like you do on a daily on the show here right now, but I think everybody in this city is understanding where the Winnipeg Jets are and where they've been for weeks now. Remo?
So yeah, here, go to the standings, and look, if you sort by points, well, Vancouver, but hey, no one cares about points. We just care about points percentage. And
it's whatever makes the Jets higher in the standings is what matters at that point, whether it's points, total points, or if it's winning percentage. In this case, it's winning percentage, obviously.
100%. Sometimes there's going to be a time where the Jets have played more games and they're up there on points, and we'll sort by that at that time.
That's all that matters. They don't ask you how much, they have to ask you how many. Or is that the same thing?
Exactly. We don't care about ratios and percentages.
Yeah, winning percentage. How is that?
Whatever makes the Jets look good.
Yeah. So, there's no predicting the future. There's no guarantees in the future. It's all about points.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Jeff. It's time to go. We've had a great time, and I'm sure you're looking forward to next week when Huss returns, and you guys can have your regular Monday conversation. Thank you so much, Jeff, for your time here on Monday.
It was awesome, Remo. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for always having me on. Connor's doing a great job behind the scenes. You guys, like I said, if let me know if the toxic work environment over there is overflowing. I'll write something up on it. We'll push him to the fire. But otherwise, I think you guys are doing a great job. I think it might be worrying Huss as he hopefully gets his safe way home from a big win from the Chiefs. Right on.
Big win. Well, thank you very much, Jeff. And yes, Hustler on his way home from Kansas City. Still thawing from Super Wild Card weekend, and Connor's got some clips ready of today's Jets practice. If you're just joining us, No Ehlers at the skate, no Scheifele, so big injury update there. And Dylan Sandberg named to play at the Manitoba Open this summer, and Nate Schmidt's got a scouting report on his golf game. So stay tuned for that. But first, Hustler's here. He's making a quick return with some notes, and then I'll be back with Connor.
Huge thanks to our friends at Little Brown Jug, Winnipeg's #1 local brewery, featuring their flagship brand 1919 and my personal favorite, the generic lager. And good news, if you're at the game tonight or on Saturday or next Tuesday, they're both available now in the new craft beer corners, section 126 in the lower bowl, where that old Moxie's area used to be. Great spot to gather with friends at intermissions and grab yourself a generic or a 1919. And up in section 310 in the upper bowl. Don't forget, right now, generic lager, $19.99 for 8 packs of tall boys at your local beer store or Manitoba liquor marts. But the best place to try all the great beers from Little Brown Jug is at the brewery and tap room on William Avenue. Pop in there, enjoy a few, take home whatever you want, and check out their great merchandise as well. Again, littlebrownjug.ca online if you want to look into it. And they do have local delivery options if you don't want to leave your house, but you do want to stay home and drink some great beer. Hey, shout out to our friends at Royal Sports. Getting ready for this Chiefs game on the weekend. Many of you might be wanting to, maybe upgrade your NFL gear for the weekend. But I think what everyone's fired up about is this hockey team right now that's on top of the NHL. Was in there last night. There is so many options for Winnipeg Jet fans when it comes to merchandise, whether it's hats, hoodies, shirts, and tons of jerseys, all custom made with your favorite player's name and number. Got it there. And while you're there, check out Big Bomber section. More from the Major League Baseball, NBA, biggest hockey section in town, and of course some other great stuff for the winter like snowboards, boots, and bindings. It's all at Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. And follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. Well, no Thursday nighters anymore in the NFL, but big Jet game tonight. Should be a great crowd. If you're not at the game, the best place to be to watch it is getting together with your crew at your local Boston Pizza. Chow down on those world-famous BP wings, gourmet pizzas, wash it down with a few ice-cold schooners with the big game on the big screen, and always with sound for the Winnipeg Jets. And hey, if you are staying at home because you don't want to go out tonight, you can get the great taste of Boston Pizza hot and fast to your door by ordering online at bostonpizza.com. And hey, while we look outside and see the snow coming down and know that it's cold, know that this won't last forever. Summer is around the corner, hopefully with a big, long playoff run. We're already getting excited for a trip to Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge again this summer. World-class, 5-star fishing experience where you can be on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg. And as great as the fishing is, and it's incredible, the only thing better is the incredible hospitality from the Aikens team, led by the Turan family. Find out more online, aikenslake.com, and hit them up on Instagram or Twitter to find out more about what's going on at Aikens Lake, at Aikens Lake.
And there's Huss. He'll be back tomorrow on his way back from Kansas City. Well, looking forward to hearing how cold it was. He said much colder than that West final between the Bombers and the Riders we were all at a couple years ago. I froze. It was very cold. Although I'm still cold from the Grey Cup when Edmonton beat Ottawa here. That one I was frozen at. Hey, but so many people in chat here. I want to give a shout out to everyone who stuck it out while I'm in the host chair. Over 300, over 350. Thank you, everyone. If you are here and enjoying the content, hit the thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. It just tells YouTube, hey, we're putting out some great content here. And maybe it'll recommend it to people who might be interested in. We depend on that YouTube algorithm. We've hit some big milestones. It was a big week last week in terms of YouTube subscribers, just with the Jets and their big win streak. Really, we benefit from that as well. We're at 10,566, and we're also on every other social media platform. Links in the description. We did hit on the weekend 4,000 followers on Instagram, so thank you everyone who's followed us on there. On TikTok, closing in on 3K. It was all that reel I posted with my elite voiceover of our premium experience at the Jets game during the 5-0 win against Columbus. So check that out there. It got Man, I'm like a social media superstar. I got 20K views on Instagram, 20K on TikTok. I got to start doing more of those. But hey, that takes a lot of time. Maybe, I'm too busy doing this here. Time to bring in Connor Hrabchak, who's been with me in the co-host chair. Connor, how you been over the last hour? So I know you were keeping track of what's going on with the Jets updates there from their morning skate.
Yeah, checked out Scott Arniel spoke, Nate Schmidt and Dylan Sandberg, the Jets' third pairing. They both spoke. Just keeping tabs on what's happening in the sports world. And, there's NFL games coming up tonight that we'll get to in a bit with some, Bills fans are kind of crazy. We'll bring that up in a bit. But from morning skate, Scott Arniel had a lot of good things to say about Rick Bowness, who is headed to the All-Star game. He had some updates for the laundry list of top players who are either managing an injury or actually injured and unable to play for the Jets. So good information from Scott Arniel, and then Nate Schmidt with a little bit of a joking clip about Sandberg's golf game, as Nate Schmidt is often in a joking, happy, joyful mood. So yeah, we got some good clips coming up, and then some NFL talk.
Yeah, well, here we talked about at the start. Rick Bowness is an all-star. Is selected to coach the Central Division All-Star team, which will be drafted of any player from any division. That's just how it works this year. Anyways, here's Scott Arniel on Rick Bowness getting the nod.
That's great for him, great honor for him, and we got to obviously tip our hats to the players there. All the things that they've done, how they've played, and to be where we are in the standings is awesome. And for him, it's a great reward for a guy that's been around the league, this long. And I know he's excited to go. And on that note, I will say Judy had her surgery today, and that's why Rick was away, and she's doing great. So everything's really looking positive, and so he'll be back tomorrow. And like I said, he's excited. We're excited for him to get that opportunity.
When you go back to, I think he was considering retirement, or at least open to the concept of it, before this job, the things that, you guys have gone through over the last year, leadership changes, players in, players out, what he's gone through this season, being with his family and all of that too. Does honors like this mean a little bit extra for him when you see it?
Yeah, I'm sure it does. He was pretty excited when, we had actually had a chance the group had a chance to tell him that he was going. He didn't know it was coming. We had a meeting, and we put it up on the screen, so he found out. And I'm sure he could have done the math too and recognized where he was. But it was good that the players were all there when he did get recognized, and that was a nice moment. And he's earned this. Over not just this year, he's earned this over his career, and certainly, like you said, he's been through a lot here. Coming into Manitoba, there's been a lot of things that have kind of been obstacles at times, and he's handled them tremendously. And he's been a real good mentor for me, and just for us as coaching staff. He gives us so much room to work and do what we need to do, and it's great for him and his family to be there.
That's awesome. I'm going to fill footage of that moment where he found out he was going to the game on runway. Darryl Lesky and the Jets team, they're doing a great job, so stay tuned to the next one. They may have some clips of Winnipeg Sports Talk on there, and here's the next one. Scott Arniel at the podium today talked about the injury updates going on with the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, it's kind of like scoring streaks. It's kind of like even losing streaks. Sometimes when you get on, especially that on a winning streak, you got the feel you just play. You just go and you open the door and play. And, the guys stuck to the system real well and kept doing night in, night out, playing the way we needed to play. And whether that took us, if we knocked the team out in the first period, or it took us like the other night to win it late in the game, whatever it took, we did a real good job of through that stretch of playing pretty consistent hockey.
In terms of the guys today, no Nikolai, obviously he was the game time decision the other day. This is just a continuation of that, trying to manage whatever he's dealing with? Yeah,
it's just management today there, and so we'll see how he is tomorrow. And like to think that he'd be back in tomorrow. Sort of more maintenance. Shifes, he'll be day to day. And then with KC, that was his first real practice with us. Like you said, we haven't had a whole lot of chance to do that. So that was his first one. We'll see how he is tomorrow and go from there. But it's nice to see him back. Obviously, the other guys, it's kind of just take it day to day with them.
In terms of Kyle, then would it
be completely out of the question that he could be potential for tomorrow, or you
well, let's wait till tomorrow morning. Like I said, today was the first one where he was right in the middle of everything, and whether it was power play or 5-on-5 drills, there were some specific things for him and a few of the other players that haven't been able to do that lately. So it was good for him to kind of be in situations that were real game like. So we'll just with the wake up tomorrow, see what it's like, how he's doing tomorrow, and go from there.
All right, big takeaways from that. Sounds like Nikolai Ehlers going to be a player tomorrow, just a little maintenance, and Kyle Connor doesn't sound as likely as tomorrow as maybe we would have hoped. Connor, I mean, it's still early. I mean, he hasn't been 6 weeks, 6 to 8 week timeline, and he just started week 5. Any other takeaways from the injury update there from Scott Arniel?
Yeah, quickly, 2 things. I remember a week or 2 ago when Rick Bowness was kind of saying, it was when Kyle Connor started skating in a non-contact, and Rick Bowness was kind of saying, yeah, he's right on schedule. He might be ahead of schedule, especially if he plays tomorrow night. I believe it's been 5 weeks and a 6 to 8 week timeline. So if he plays tomorrow, if he plays Saturday, that's still ahead of schedule. That's great news. And I found it interesting that Scott Arniel wouldn't outright rule Kyle Connor out for tomorrow. I do know it's his first practice, and it's very unlikely that he still plays. But it would be very easy for him to just say, oh, no, we're going to take him till the next couple practices, maybe get him in Saturday. But no, he said, we'll see how it feels tomorrow and go from there, which is interesting because maybe Kyle Connor, shocks us, shocks Jets fans and gets back into the lineup tomorrow. And then they give him the 4th line treatment, get back up to speed, maybe 2 more days of practice, and then he's back in his role in the top 6 on Saturday. I wouldn't be shocked, but I found that interesting that Scott Arniel just didn't outright rule him out. And they're waiting to see till tomorrow.
Yeah, Kyle Connor still leads the team in goals. I mean, it's going to be hard to win games. You're missing your top point getter, your top point scorer, as they did Saturday, didn't score. And he did practice on power play 1. John Liu putting out there with Ifao, Lowry, and Josh Morrissey, the second power play, which has been, well, I guess the whole power play as a whole hasn't been strong,
No.
going 0 for 3 in the last game. But I thought this line, they had some goals recently with Domestikov, Pionk, Niederreiter, Perfetti, and Schmidt. And speaking of Schmidt, he was at the mic today talking about Dylan Sandberg, his defense partner, named to participate in the Manitoba Open this summer at Southwood. We wanted to know about Sandberg's game, and Nate Schmidt brought the scouting report.
Open golf tournament in August. What can you tell us about his golf game?
It's going to be money up. His golf game's great. It pisses me off because he can play with any clubs. If you give him a pair of left-handed, regular shaft or one that's bent the wrong way, he'll flip it over and hit it. It's just, he's a Carney. It's just, it's frustrating because he just started playing left-handed like 4 years ago and he's already better than me. So, he was a righty for his first however long his career. Here he is. Yeah. What else do you want to say about your golf game?
Maybe needs a caddy.
Hey, you need a caddy? I'd love to be a caddy. The only problem is we wouldn't be talking about golf. Yeah, a lot of good things to say. Just can't say them in front of him.
All right, there's Nate Schmidt with the scouting report on Dylan Sandberg. Can you believe that, Connor? What, he played righty for so long and just switched to lefty and is better?
Yeah. So Sandberg actually said that he started playing golf with right-handed clubs and just thought that he sucked. And then he started hitting with left-handed clubs, and then his parents bought him a set, and obviously now he's good. And then when asked about it, Sandberg almost kind of like switched into hockey cliche mode. He said like, yeah, it's good. Like, I'm just glad I get to compete and all this. And I'm like, dude, like it's golf. Like you can say like, oh, my short game sucks, or I'm not good at putting or whatever. Like everyone has issues with their golf game, but he's like, no, I'm just glad I get to go out there and compete. And I think I'm pretty good. And I was like, he's sticking to the cliches. I respect it. But Nate Schmidt obviously said he was a little pissed off that Sandberg can just switch left and right and still be better than him. I found that pretty funny.
Great. Well, you couldn't get left golf clubs that they weren't as readily available, like 10,
right.
15. And I had some friends that, were lefties that had to learn how to do right because you couldn't get left clubs. But now, I guess, we're more ambidextrous in the golf world. It's not as rare of a thing, and that'll be fun in the summer. There's the Jets update as we wind it down here. A little NFL talk. I know you were glued to the TV on the weekend. What was the number one takeaway for you from Super Wildcard Weekend?
Super Wildcard,
yeah,
right?
6 games now. It's way better than 4 games. Come on.
Oh yeah, it just changes everything. No, but as a Niners fan, we had the 1 seed. They weren't playing this weekend. They're just taking the lowest seed out of remaining in the NFC, and that's who they'll play. The lowest seed I was expecting to maybe be the Rams, who would maybe beat the Lions. They ended up losing. But the craziest game for me this weekend was the Green Bay Packers going into Dallas and just throttling the Cowboys. Like, that game wasn't even close. Dallas scored 2 touchdowns late that made it look a little bit better. But at one point, that game was 48-16. Like, that game was a blowout. And is this the first 7 seed to ever win in this Super Wild Card Weekend? And they won it by over, like, they won by 30 points. I know Dallas garbage time points, whatever. They blew them out by over 30. It was an incredible display of football by a team I wasn't expecting it from. And now, as a Niners fan with the 1 seed, Green Bay is coming to Santa Clara, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little bit worried given how well Green Bay played against Dallas. But yeah, that game was crazy. The scenes in Detroit were awesome. Seeing Lions fans like in tears after their team won a playoff game. It's their first home playoff game in over 30 years. That was really cool to see. I was kind of rooting for them, rooting for a good story. And then what were the other games? Yes, CJ Stroud, one of the best young quarterbacks in the league. Joe Flacco's Cinderella run came to an end. He threw 2 pick sixes. And then, yeah, the Chiefs game we've talked about a little bit already. But Miami looked like a team that was from Miami. They looked cold, whether it was Tua, whether it was Tyreek Hill had a nice touchdown, but they didn't look ready for it. And the Chiefs came away with a win. That defense played great. And I guess I covered every game there. Lee Hacksaw Hamilton style, covered every game
there you go.
On Super Wildcard Weekend.
Shout out to Gimli1128 giving me the gears. He says, come on, Remis, hard to find left clubs? Maybe in the 70s and 80s. This is someone born in the 90s. Referring to Dylan Sandberg, was born, yes, January. He's got a birthday coming up, Jan 24, 99. Actually, a couple January birthdays. Cole Perfetti just turned 22 on January 1st. So, okay, well, look, you can tell that I really... I'm not a golf guy, okay, Gimli? I'm just trying to talk from experience, when I talk to my friends about golf 15, 20 years ago. So moving on, I'll tell you, the image of the weekend for me was Patrick Mahomes' helmet cracking in that game. Pretty crazy. I mean, it was just so cold there. The images of that game, incredible. I mean, the field was basically ice. You couldn't run. I can't believe they even played. It seemed like it should have been illegal. A lot of talk about Taylor Swift there. I think it's like anyone who gets shown on the broadcast who's not part of the game a lot, you kind of get sick of it. I mean, I'm fine with it. I think it's interesting. Yeah. They showed Eminem a lot yesterday. People were getting mad. Like, I trashed in the hockey playoffs Mark Stone's parents for being shown all the time. I don't know if they listen to the show or not, but hey, you're there to watch the game and not for the side storylines. But I did enjoy the storyline. I know you're a 49ers fan, we mentioned. It was Kyle Juszczyk's wife who made her jacket, the custom thing. And there he was on Twitter tweeting at every single person who would listen that it was his wife. I know she's gotten like 100K followers on Instagram. That was an interesting note. Yeah, CJ Stroud, what he's doing as a rookie, absolutely incredible. And the biggest loser of wildcard weekend, Dallas. We all shocked. Dallas. I mean, they came out of that game like they couldn't make a pass. Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb had such a good connection during the year. They couldn't do anything. And passes are sailing high. They're going through CeeDee's hands. I don't know what happened, but you have to think some change is going to happen with the coaching staff after another playoff. This was supposed to be their year. They were dominant at home, playing a young and experienced Green Bay team. And I agree, Jordan Love, he looks very strong. And if there is a wild card team that has a shot at a Super Bowl, I would be nervous about Green Bay. They seem to be peaking at the right time.
Yeah, and we've seen Green Bay do it before. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when a lower seed beats a high seed, you can blame it on the weather. Like when it's a we're going to talk about the Buffalo game in a second here. That game has some pretty extreme weather. But no, that game's played in Dallas in that $1 billion stadium in a dome, and that game wasn't close. I was shocked watching that game. It was impressive, to say the least.
That was the shocking. I wasn't that shocked by Joe Flacco throwing 2 pick sixes.
Yeah, no.
You kind of, he had turned the ball over. He had played really well. I think that was the shot, and he kind of came back down to earth. And shout out to the Texans. Their classic wild card weekend Saturday, 3:30 Central Time.
They're back on Saturday this weekend too.
Oh,
they
are
just
they?
love playing the Texans on Saturday. Yeah.
Oh man. So are they playing the Ravens?
If the Bills win, then they're
Okay.
playing the Ravens, and if they lose, then they're playing the Chiefs. But regardless, they're on Saturday. So
that's at 3:30 today, the Bills, and a lot of talk about the snowstorm in Buffalo. Let's just take a live look in at Bills fans, and this is going around Twitter. And for you on the podcast, it's Bills fans on a they're on a snow mountain singing shout. Someone's lighting a table on fire because it's Buffalo. And this is wild. Oh my God. Just jumping off a snow mountain onto the table. That is wild stuff. We saw images. Sunday was supposed to be the game. It was a complete blizzard. Where the stadium was rightfully moved it to Monday, and they're out having a good time shoveling. I think Dave Naylor's there. He's tweeting out pictures of the stands all covered. So the field looks good. I don't think it's going to be as bad as that Chiefs game, but there you go. Waiters and
that clip there. Sorry, real quick. That clip. If you watch it again, I was watching it when Jeff Hamilton was up. The first 2 people make contact with the table, and then one person is like slower down, falling, and just lands on the other 2 people. It doesn't turn out well. Bills fans, we know it. They're crazy. Yeah, here we go. We got a live action replay. The table's on fire. The snow mountain is, what is that? Probably like 5 to 7 feet up above the table. 2 people hit table. Then the next person comes in, rolls over the other people. Yeah, that's hard contact to take pregame. Might need the concussion spotter out there in the parking lot, making sure everyone's all right. But yeah, Bills fans, I was not shocked to see them, jumping off of the snow into tables. I was expecting it, and they came through. But yeah, the seats, the fans are going to be like standing on the snow because, like you said, Dave Naylor's tweeting out all these photos. You can't access a row. Like, you can't even see like seat numbers or anything like that. Like, tickets don't matter. As long as you have a ticket, you walk in. You can't see rows. Like, it's just covered in snow. It's a crazy scene.
Yeah, pretty cool scenes here. Pretty cool scenes here as Super Wild Card Weekend continues today at 3:30. I'm trying to think if I have any other big takeaways from the weekend that I wanted to get to on NFL. Shocking Cowboys, but you kind of love to see the Cowboys lose. I mean, I thought they were going to take it for sure against the Green Bay, which I thought had a bad defense. And then who was the other game? The Rams. That was nice to see Detroit get the win. You mentioned concussion spot. I was shocked Matt Stafford was allowed to continue after his eyes rolled in the back of his head, and tough injury there for Tyler Higbee on the Rams. That was just a hard-hitting game. They let them play. They maybe could have called some roughing the passer or some PI, but those guys were really beating the crap out of each other. And game reminds me of like Steelers-Bengals they used to see. Like, you don't really see that often in NFL in 2024.
Yeah, I agree. And I saw someone tweet out, I'm not sure who it was. I retweeted it. But it was basically like the Cowboys getting blown out at home and the Lions winning. Is that the biggest like ball don't lie moment in NFL history because of that blown call 3 weeks ago when the Lions offensive lineman went to register and they registered the wrong guy? And yeah, now the football gods have made everything right. Detroit's even going to get another home playoff game because Dallas lost. And all is right in the world, in the NFL world at least. And yeah, ball don't lie. A lot of people say that in basketball, but here we are in football. Football gods making up for it.
Yeah, and here's Sam Crow in chat. He says, I'm a Cowboys fan. Even I knew they would choke before I knew who they would play. Sam Crow. I mean, the Cowboys wrecked me in NFL, my survivor pool this year, too, when they were heavily favored and lost. So I know I keep buying into the Cowboys hype every year. They got some great players, but, man, they did not show up at all. Green Bay did. And if you took them in fantasy, Dak still threw for 400 yards. Maybe the most meaningless 400-yard game ever. And we're winding down the show. We'll get to the Coolbet lines, but I did promise we would talk about this. The new NHL All-Star jerseys. Here they are. Designed. Justin Bieber consulted on these, and maybe I'm just old, but I don't know. First I thought that these really sucked. They're blue, some purple, ketchup red, mustard yellow, white. I like how they have the 4 colors. Last year they only had 2, and you couldn't tell which team was which. I don't know, Connor. I'm not sure about these. The logo is like the biggest logo they've ever used on a jersey. I don't know. I don't know. I like a traditional. I like a jersey with bottom striping. Like I don't like the Devils jerseys. I don't know. I'm looking at them more and more. It kind of just looks like a regular long sleeve sweater that you would wear out to a nice dinner. I don't know. It doesn't really look like a jersey to me. So, care to weigh in?
Yeah, I think that's my biggest issue with them is that it doesn't even look like a jersey. There's not really any structure to it. The stars make the NHL logo kind of look clunky. I don't mind the white. I actually think the white one looks good, but the yellow and red just completely don't do it for me. Those I really don't like. And then the blue's okay. I think if there's one that I had to buy because I wanted a player, NHL All-Star jersey for if I was collecting or something like that, I'd go with the white one. I think that one looks the best. But the other 3, yeah, you can leave those ones. I don't like it. Doesn't look like a jersey. The colors are weird. Looks like a Rockstar energy drink. It's just
I like that. Looks like a Rockstar energy. Yeah, and you go get those.
I have to credit Scott Billick for that one. I think he was the one that said that up in the press box the other night.
I guess that's what they're going for. I don't know. They're not going for me. I'm not a fan of the striping on the arms, but whatever. It's for one game. But I like to critique jerseys. And here's what the number font is. I don't know if they're gonna have the names on the bottom, which I'm open to. So we'll see what they look like full uniform, but not my favorite. Last year's were such a home run, I think, patterning off the 90s jerseys, and we all know everything was better in the 90s. But we'll see what happens. I do like critiquing jerseys, and at first I thought they were not. The more I look at them, they're kind of growing on me, but they're not great. So whatever. It's for a game. It's fun. Maybe they'll sell some, maybe not. We'll see. We'll see what happens. They're fun for me to critique jerseys, as I said, like 3 times. We're winding down the show. Coolbet lines. We do have some NFL action started because it's starting in 25 minutes. We got to get to it.
Yeah.
And 2 games. The line was very low because you thought it was going to be in a blizzard, but the over-under here in this Bills game changed at 39. Bills -10 over the Steelers. Huge money line favorites, and the Eagles -3 on the road at Tampa. Any lean here on these NFL games?
I mean, I'm worried about the Eagles because AJ Brown isn't playing. Their best offensive weapon. They still have some guys. They'll have Devontae Smith, DeAndre Swift. That offensive line can move people. And Jalen Hurts has had some up moments this year. He's had some down moments, but if you're betting on an up game, maybe the Eagles get it done, but I'm really worried about them, especially the 3 points there. But you look at the other side, it's Baker Mayfield. So are you going to bet on Baker, as they say? And then the Bills, I think the Bills, especially since the field conditions actually don't look too bad, I think, obviously, I think they're gonna win this one. That's not a hot take at all, but the -10, I wouldn't be shocked because the Steelers, without TJ Watt, might get dicey. And then, yeah, if it was a blizzard, I'd like them to, lean on the run game and stuff. But I think the Bills can run away with this one, especially since the field looks okay. Maybe the fans will be, trampling over each other and busting into tables, but the Bills should be able to take care of business on the field.
Yeah, I'm curious how this game shakes out. The Eagles' defense has been among the worst the last couple games. But Baker Mayfield, he's been kind of banged up too, multiple injuries. How's he going to go? They have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. I think they should be able to cover at home. I would take the home dog there, but maybe the Eagles surprise us here. A number of NHL games happened today. Sabres, happening right now. Sabres, Sharks, 3-0 Sabres. Bruins winning 3-0 over the Devils. Blue Jackets 4-3 over the Canucks. Panthers lose in overtime to the Ducks. Penguins 3-0 over the Kraken. Kings leading 1-0 over Carolina. But I will go to tonight's games. And look, we saw the Flyers here Saturday after playing Friday in Minnesota. The classic Minnesota-Winnipeg back-to-back, if you want to look in tonight. The Minnesota Wild are somehow favored against the Islanders. The Wild got blown out on a second game back-to-back Saturday against Arizona, and they had a players-only meeting. I think they've had multiple of those this year. So I'm curious, do they bounce back tonight against the Islanders? They're slight favorites, -113. The Islanders' first game, so it sets up nicely for the Jets tomorrow. Vegas hosting Nashville, they're slight favorites. Their goalie situation, Logan Thompson came back over the weekend. They're -116 against Nashville. Colorado, huge favorites. Jonathan Drouin's return to Montreal, -206 Colorado. And how about this? The Flyers just won here. They're in St. Louis. It's a pick'em. I don't know if you got any thoughts on which game you're looking forward to this evening, and if you got a lean either way.
I mean, I'm definitely intrigued with the Islanders Wild game, and I think that Wild game where they got blown out 6-0 by the Coyotes was actually Kaprizov's first game back into the lineup. So that's notable that they're on a losing streak. I saw Michael Russo, the Athletic, tweet that at the time of the Jets' home and home against the Wild, I think they could have moved within 4 points had they won both games, and now they're over 20 points separated between them and the Jets. So they've really slid, while the Jets, obviously, they're on a franchise record, or they were on a franchise record winning streak. But yeah, I'm definitely intrigued to see if the Wild can bounce back. I'm shocked that if you would have told me before the season that a game in mid-January between Vegas and Nashville would have that close of odds, I would have been pretty shocked. But I mean, given the way these teams have played lately, Vegas hasn't been too good, and their goaltending situation, like you said, is definitely waning. So it's interesting slate for sure. A few Central Division teams in action, and yeah, I'll definitely be tuning in, flipping between these and the Eagles and Bucks.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the Monday Night Football Super Wild Card Weekend style as well. So hey, that'll do it. I got to say, I think it's because during the whole Minnesota Jets back-to-back, I was clicking on a lot of Wild tweeters, and I just get on my timeline all the time, all these Wild updates, and I'm really happy to see them going to a nosedive, as I had a number of Wild fans in my mentions after Ryan Hartman slashed Perfetti in the face. So that'll do it for us. Hustler will be back. We'll hear all about his trip. Should we check in on the people? If he's posted any updates of his drive home?
Go take a look. He texted me yesterday saying he doesn't think he's warmed up yet, and he's still frozen. So that's the update I can provide.
No, but he just posted some barbecue, and he posted a picture of him at the game. I think I shared it on our Instagram as well. So here, I'll just bring it up real quick. I said that I would, so here he is at the game. He's got his Grey Cup toque on. I don't know how you stay warm. There's his barbecue. Little pregame meal.
It's interesting. A little tent set up there with the barbecue. Like, is he inside of a sheltered thing with a TV in there as well? I don't know.
I'm not sure. I don't know what situation they have there. So, and this was his drive. This is crazy. I think, I've driven down to Minneapolis in winter. Not the additional drive to KC, but look at this. That is some serious conditions. Hopefully, he gets home safely. Mm-hmm. Anyways, Connor. Great work today. Great work.
You as well.
Friday. Thank you. Yeah, it's nerve-wracking doing this, but we survived. We made it. We talked 2 hours about sports. It was right in our wheelhouse. Wheelhouse. So thank you for coming on, and thank you everyone who's stuck with us and listen. If you're still here on YouTube, hit the thumbs up. How many do we got here? 176. Can we get to 200? I can get a couple more subscribes down below. Thank you. And hey, if you're watching after, leave a comment, on thoughts on the Jets win streak losing or takeaways from NFL. And we're looking forward to seeing the Jets practice tomorrow and who makes their way into the lineup, as we've had a number of injuries. So we'll stay tuned for that. So Connor, thanks again. And thank you, everyone. And big thanks to our sponsors, Canadian Club, Modern Man, Manitoba Battery, Jets, Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, Little Brown Jug, Boston Pizza, and Coolbet. So thank you, everyone, and see you later. Until tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.